Lachish, Lachish. How in the world do you even pronounce the city where we're going to next in our teaching today? Stay tuned. Well, a warm welcome to you today as you join our teaching channel that's all about teaching the Bible in the context of the land of Israel. Where we're heading today is a city called Lachish. We'll talk about the pronunciation of this city in just a moment. It is located in the southern part of what we call the Shephelah, or the lowlands of Judah. The Shephelah, another Hebrew term that's hard to pronounce sometimes. But Lachish was a city, a Canaanite city first, and then a Judean city. All kinds of biblical history connects us to this site, and we're going to travel there and see some very impressive things, and again, make some connections with the Bible. So, Lachish is perhaps the Hebrew pronunciation. Some pronounce it Lachish, Lachish. Again, it all depends how guttural you want to be in your Hebrew, but it's a great site and filled with great archaeology. And again, I'm delighted to have you travel with us today right to the site where we're going to walk together and see a bunch of interesting things. Before we do that, thanks for subscribing to this channel, and certainly if you feel led, hit the bell if you want to be informed of all of our future teachings. So let's go to Lachish together. Lachish is one of my favorite cities. It's an ancient Canaanite and Judean city. It's about 35 acres in size. We call it an archaeological tell. It looks like a hill. It certainly was a hill to start with, and yet many layers of occupation over literally hundreds, if not thousands of years. So we have our approach on this side. Here on the way up, we'll see the siege ramp that was built by the Assyrians, but we'll take a look at that later. This site has been excavated for many years, although it is really still an active excavations. During the times of the Judeans, this was a double-walled city. So we're going to go up this ramp, which is made for visitors. And on one side, you can see a restored fortification wall. This is an Iron Age or Israelite wall, and the outer gate of the double gate complex. Here's the inner wall. In fact, you can see the restoration line used by archaeologists to tell us what was found and what was then reconstructed. A model of the gate that we're going to walk through looked like this. Again, a very formidable fortification. The Judeans knew how to fortify cities, and here is what it looks like from a distance. So we're going to walk up into this gate, and right inside of this gate, actually, they discovered back in 1935 what have been called the Lachish Letters. These are about 18 ostraca, and one of these is very important. We call it the Lachish letter number 4, and here it is. These are small pieces of pottery with an inscription on it. And this particular inscription tells us that at the time that the Babylonians were here attacking the city, there were 2 standing cities yet, because a signal fire was used to communicate between these two cities. And this inscription tells us that the two last standing cities in Judah, besides Jerusalem, were the cities of Azekah and Lachish. Now that's interesting because what we read in Jeremiah chapter 34 tells us exactly the same thing. So Jeremiah 34:7 reads this way: While the army of the king of Babylon was fighting against Jerusalem and the other cities of Judah that were still holding out, Lachish and Azekah. These were the only fortified cities left in Judah. In other words, we have a perfect match between what was found archaeologically and what we read about in the Bible. So as we walk into the inner gate, this is what a model of it looked like. Now you can see on this one side it's been reconstructed for us. Credit to the team of archaeologists digging here at Lachish. You can see the three chambers on the left, of course restored, and what we see today on the right as it was found by the archaeologist. This is a typical 6-chamber gate, and it served as the inner gate of this complex. We know from the Bible that a lot of activity took place at the city gate, especially in times of peace. Decisions were made, judges ruled here, and yet this gate could be well fortified in times of siege. So moving on from this gate area that we see in front of us, attached to this inner gate, by the way, is the city wall, but now we find the palace. Probably, according to 2 Chronicles chapter 11, this was built by Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the first king of Judah in the divided kingdom. So let's go towards this palace, and we'll walk on this path that leads us to what is left of this massive structure. You can see some of the walls of the palace. Some of these have been restored. But we'll make our way up the modern stairway for a great view of Azekah, which we can see as mentioned in the Lachish letter number 4 and Jeremiah 34. We're looking north and east in the Shephelah or the lowlands. So this certainly was a high advantage point for those Judeans living here at Lachish. By the way, predating this palace, archaeologists have found remnants of a Canaanite temple. Originally, this was a Canaanite city with walls, and yet it was destroyed in just 2 days, according to Joshua chapter 10. So looking down towards the vineyards of Lachish, we can see yet as a part of the archaeological site on this slope of the site, we can see remnants of a wall. This would have been a Judean fortification wall, probably underneath remnants of the Canaanite wall. So let's go towards this opening, and I'll show you a recent picture from this past winter, so you can see the green vegetation. But this area of the gate, you can see the extension of this wall right in front of us, and certainly this seems to be a part of the fortification wall of the city, dating to the time of Rehoboam. So everywhere you look on top of the tell, you see ruins, and of course a pottery cemetery. Every time you dig, you wash pottery, you identify it, and then the worthless pieces are brought back to the site and just left. And that's what we see here. So more walls and a portion of a tower of this city on yet the other side of the tell. So now let's talk about the Assyrian siege ramp built by Sennacherib. This was in 701 BC when the Assyrians came from the north and literally wiped out most of the Judean cities. The Judeans living here at Lachish were defending the city in their towers, and yet they were not successful. So that takes us to the British Museum that I had a chance to visit in February. This was a relief found in Nineveh displaying the details of the siege of Lachish by Sennacherib and the Assyrian army. Right here we see Sennacherib. He's giving orders and permission for his troops to attack these Judean cities, mentioned, by the way, in Isaiah 36 and 7 and 2 Chronicles 32. And yet in cuneiform, these were the words of Sennacherib as the Assyrian army attacked the kingdom of Judah. The detail of this attack as preserved on this relief are incredible. Here we can begin seeing the close details of what the Assyrians look like, their soldiers, Judeans being taken out of the city. We can also see these Judeans defending the city against these Assyrians. They are positioned with bows and arrows on top of the fortification tower. These are Judeans who are trying to hold back the battering ram approaching the city. We saw that already at the site, up the siege ramp that was built in order for these battering rams to approach the walls of the city. Assyrian soldiers were always depicted with pointy helmets. And here once again, the siege ramp that was built for the purpose of being able to move the battering ram to the top tower of the city. You can see that these Assyrian soldiers were well armed and protected. They too had bows and arrows and shields, and even sling stones that were used by these Assyrian invaders. They're about the size of a baseball. In fact, just last summer I found one of these stones lodged into the wall of the Judean city of Libnah or Tel-Bernah. Isaiah 37 tells us that after the Assyrians took Lachish, then they also attacked Libnah, only a few miles away. So this ancient city of Lachish is a great one to visit as we connect once again with the Bible. I just love how the Bible and archaeology continues to match perfectly. You know, we talked about the story of the Babylonians who came in the beginning of the 6th century. This one ostraca, or ostracan, I should say, that's the singular. The whole bunch of ostraca that were found, but letter number 4 indicates that this city, along with Azekah, were the 2 last standing cities. And again, isn't it great to open up our Bible and read from Jeremiah 34 and see that the prophet Jeremiah said the exact same thing about the same event in the same time period? I think it's, again, remarkable but not surprising. It should not surprise us of how archaeology and the Bible match up perfectly. And then I guess I have to share this personally with you, how amazing an experience it was for me. This was my first visit, by the way, to the British Museum. And of course, I included some photos from this particular wing of the museum where this whole Lachish battle relief is displayed. It was remarkable to see that firsthand. I've read about it. I've seen pictures at the Israel Museum. There's a model of this relief, if you will. but to see the original one that comes from Nineveh, and to see again, to read and understand Sennacherib's plans for battle, how he took 46 Judean cities, how he took over 200,000 Judeans exiled, and certainly the details of this battle with Lachish, the towers, the siege ramp, it's all there. And then we again open up our Bible to Isaiah 36 and 7 and 2 Chronicles 32, and we read about it. Again, that just brings great joy and confirmation for me, and I hope to you, as we again see how archaeology confirms and reveals the historicity of the Bible. So that's, I hope, your takeaway from this visit to Lachish today, and just to understand how wonderful it is to be able to read the Bible knowing that it's fully inspired and fully accurate in every detail, confirmed and revealed by biblical archaeology. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, shalom.